system. So it's a system that we exist out of equilibrium with our environment, and that's what its thought is driving the complexity and allowing us to be complex. So the point of that is that, so if you find life on Mars in wet conditions, there's probably subsurface water on Mars, I think. Certainly frozen, probably liquid.
Because they've found those caves that they've found, and there's, I mean, dune, you just got to put it down, it's like dune.
Yes,
there's going to be water in there.
There's almost certainly liquid water present somewhere. So then if you find life there, and if it's different, and really then you are in that realm where you're saying that life is inevitable, right? Simple life. Because there's two planets next door, roughly the same conditions, life evolved and both of them emerged. So then I think that's the profound, well, it's obviously profound either way, because it's nice to know, but if it evolved once and then got transferred, that's, I suppose in some sense, rather less profound than if it emerged separately twice.
I'm just wondering how religious people would feel about it.
How?
The church.
Religious people.
How the church would respond to finding...
Which church? All churches.
Well, that's true. Because there are lots of
the fundamentalists. I'll just put it under it. The fundamentalists would just go nuts.
Well, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, I do think it's irrelevant in a sense. I mean, to me, science is a very simple process, right? What it is, it's about taking data, looking at things, and then trying to understand it by either making models of it or whatever. And that seems to me to be divorced from the sort of, I don't know, it doesn't matter what your opinion is about the data. There's the powerful thing.
Well, I shouldn't be bringing the politics and all that into it anyway.
Well, it doesn't, does it? No, it's very important actually, because I think that when you look at this, like climate change, for example. So what is the science? The science is that we've got lots of data, mainly from satellites. It's very good, and it measures the change in temperatures, ocean temperatures, etc. So that's unarguable. You can't argue with the data. You can't really argue with the modelling. The modelling is what it is. It's imperfect, because it's a very complex system. But the models are there, and you make models, and you say, well, given our best understanding, this is what happens, and this is what's causing the increase, which is in the data. And there we are, full stop. And so I think it's very important for the public, as it were, and politicians and everybody else to understand what science actually is. Because it's not an interest group. It's not a way of looking at the world. It is the process by which we gather data and try and understand it. And that's it. So there's no agenda there. So I think for me, even trying to discuss what were the implications of discovering life on Mars? The scientific answer is, I don't give a shit.
I just want them to find it.
Yeah, there it is. Now, you lot decide, the only piece of data is there's life there.
Yeah.
And and you can...
it'd be marvellous. I'd love to see it.
That wonderful quote from Neil deGrasse Tyson comes to mind, that science works whether you believe it or not.
Yes.
Exactly right,
yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess the other thing that comes out of the question, I mean, you look at the two examples of, two separate origins is wonderful argument that life arises as soon as it's possible.
Yeah.
But, and if it turned out to be the same origin, then it's a single event some time ago. But it's also possible that life could have arisen on Mars first and was transferred to Earth.
And
that's
we
very
were seeded.
exciting. Yeah, that's very exciting.
And the other possibility is that there are very few ways of doing it. So you can look at DNA and RNA, and you look at the way the bases are and what they do chemically. And it may be that there are not many ways of building self-replicating systems with the building blocks you've got, essentially carbon and amino acids. So it could be that it would be the same, because it's got to be the same, and it's kind of the inevitability actually forces inevitability on the chemistry. We were talking earlier about that. I've just finished the series Wonders of Life, which is a wonderful crash course for me in evolutionary biology and biochemistry. What I didn't really appreciate about DNA is that it's not just a code. So you think it sounds like a binary code that can give you the information to build things, but it does the building. I mean, and it's very chemical. So the coding is based on triplets of the base pairs. So there's A, C, T, and G, and a code. So like AGG will code for an amino acid, and ATC will code for another amino acid. There's actually redundancy in the code as well. So there are 64 combinations, but only 20 of them are used. used actually. So it's kind of, and that's interesting as well. But what you find is the first one usually codes for what's called a precursor, so the chemical building block of that amino acid. The second one usually codes for its response to water. So is it hydrophilic or hydrophobic, which is basically to do with the geometry, so the orientation of these molecules and how they orientate within the scaffolding that water provides. So actually you see that you can see where the origins of the chemistry in the code. So it's not just a code. They are chemical reactions, and they are coded for chemical reactions, and they are coded through it via chemistry. So it's a very chemical thing. And so you wonder whether, and these amino acids are not very complicated, they're not massively complicated molecules, so you wonder whether actually, pretty much, it's the simplest way. But what's actually thought is that probably the 2-bit code that codes for 16 amino acids was probably the first bit. And indeed, the 16 most common amino acids are going to proteins are coded by the first 2, and all the redundancies in the third. So it looks like the third one was probably a later addition that allowed a bit more flexibility and actually some robustness against mutations and things actually. So probably those 2 things, you might think maybe you'd get similar life elsewhere.
Just at the very, very base of it, yeah.
And then obviously then there's complex. I mean, then you go on to talk about complex life, which is very different. I mean, there are lots of things that look like coincidences that led to, for example, the complex cell, the eukaryotic cell. That's a chimera, undoubtedly. It's undoubtedly the case that a bacteria, probably a bacterium and an archaea, these 2 simple forms of life, got inside one another, one way or the other, and that gave you ultimately the things called the mitochondria, which again, so they're bacteria, they're symbiotic bacteria that got inside. They still are. They've still got mitochondrial DNA. These groups, they're not. It's a symbiont essentially, which has been carved down over the years into just doing a job, which is producing energy for the rest of the cell. So these look like chance events in the evolutionary history of life. So you'd be surprised if you had the same eukaryotic cells as prokaryotes, the same, chloroplasts inside the photosynthetic plants, which again are symbionts. So. But the DNA thing, you wouldn't. It'd be interesting actually.
Where do you sit on that idea of life may be common and may arise wherever the conditions may give rise to the possibility of it, but complex life is much more. It's a whole different matter, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean because the history of life on Earth is it was simple for a long time. By simple, I mean literally bacteria.
Well, 90% of the time of the Earth, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, the eukaryotes, I think, was a cell